We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings, secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Conspiracy Corner Podcast. This is Abe, your host. I'm flying solo today. It is 6 a.m. the day after Halloween, so November 1st. If you're listening, wherever you are listening to us on, if you're checking us out on YouTube, which, by the way, thanks for the new sub. Anytime I get a new sub, I always put out a new video or podcast literally that day. So, I try to do it as often as possible, but I do it in general just because it's like it gives me more incentive to work harder on the channel. But if you can check us out for free on YouTube, and if you listen to the podcast on Google Podcast or Breaker or Radio Public or Spotify, that's also where you can find us. I'll go through that again. Spotify, Google Podcast, Breaker, or Radio Public are the other four channels you can find us on for podcasting. But if you actually want to see what we look like, check us out on YouTube too, man. Because on YouTube, we do ghost hunting videos. Me and my wife have done probably, about 45 different ghost hunting videos we have done, investigations. We do cooking videos. Sometimes I do conspiracy videos, but it's not long enough to make a podcast about, so I just do it in video form. Book reviews, I put up. I put all sorts of stuff on the main YouTube channel, so check it out. That's where most people find me, and that's where most people follow me. But if you're just a listener and you want to put a face to a voice, and you want to see some other content that you're not going to get on the Spotify, Google Podcast, Breaker, or Radio Public, check us out on YouTube and give us a sub, And if you're on YouTube and you're only here because of the podcast, if you don't care, our sponsor is Anchor, so check us out on those 4 sites, because I know it doesn't sound like much, but YouTube doesn't pay me, though Anchor does, and I get basically a penny for each listen on each of those websites. So I know it don't seem like much, but I made 43 cents, and it might turn into $1. That would be kind of cool. Might buy me a cheeseburger later on, because I'm kind of skinny over here. But let's see. I usually start each podcast with a little update on how I'm doing. Today was actually a very chill day at work. Give me just a second. I'm going to open a door. It's a little warm in here. Sorry. But yeah, today was a pretty chill day at work. Time went back an hour, so I got home earlier. I worked a full shift, but where time went back an hour, I got home earlier. So, let's see, my plans. I thought of this plan, which is crazy. Like, each title page for Conspiracy Corner Podcast. If you're on YouTube, you'll see each title page. It starts with the theme song and shows kind of like a cartoon that I've drawn for each theme of the episode. I thought of an awesome idea. Like, if you're on YouTube, check out, I put out a video of literally my artwork. And it actually kind of ties in with this episode actually a little bit, because I ended up finding a lady who runs the art festival here in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, through a concert that I did back in the day when I had a punk band, Vicious Fist. And she runs an art festival, and I've made multiple paintings throughout the years, and I'm thinking about trying to get into the art festival this year. I'm not sure how that's going to go down with COVID going on, but if I can, I would like to set up a little booth and sell some of my artwork. I'm not going to sell the originals, but I'm going to sell prints of them, and I'll sign them and whatever. But anyways, I digress. What I was saying about the each individual artwork title page that I do for this podcast on YouTube, I always hand draw it and color it, and it's just a little doodle to set the theme for the episode with the bunny and the deer, which is me and my wife's spirit animals. But I thought of an amazing idea. Is we started, like, because we don't want to throw them away because it's art. But I'm like, man, we're starting to get a stack of them, because we're on Conspiracy Corner Podcast episode, like, I think we're getting up to like 50 or something. Like, but I keep drawing them, for each episode. It's just a real quick doodle, but I'm like, we should hand these out as flyers to get more word on the streets. When we do get like quite a bit, hand them out as flyers on the streets. Go to the main street and be like, hey, check out the channel. Put info on where to find us and shit like that on the back of it, and hand them out as flyers. And honestly, it's kind of like a miniature poster if they want to hang it up on their wall, or they want to keep it. Or I just think like hand drawn and handwritten flyers, like, I feel like it's kind of bringing it back to punk rock, which is the theme of this episode, and kind of putting word on the street that we're out there, and we're doing some podcasting. Check us out. But that's all I got really for an opener. Today we're going to be talking about Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen. And this is a conspiracy theory, because I don't know, a lot of people, they came across the whole Sid and Nancy story through the movie Sid and Nancy. And if you're a new time listener, hey, cool. If you're a new time viewer of my channel, hey, cool. Check out other stuff. And you kind of learn my backstory, which was Sid Vicious to me when I was younger was kind of an idol. And I got into punk rock through like Sid Vicious, the Ramones, Misfits, the OGs of punk. But like, to me, he was an idol, and to me it's a love story, and the way the movie depicts this is it's a love story gone bad, and it was an unhealthy relationship. Like, if you look at it from a therapeutic standpoint, very unhealthy. But all punk rock is unhealthy. A lot of it's nihilism, self-destruction. Who gives a fuck? Fuck this, fuck that, fuck everything, fuck you, But I mean, I as any teenager and young adult, you have that angst, and that's something that I found that was cool. I liked the style of it, the clothing style of it. I liked that it was music, but it also had a movement. It wasn't just music. And to me, that's what I liked about it. Like with music nowadays, and here we go, I'm going to sound like a boomer, but music nowadays, it's like all gangster rap and mumble rap and hey, drink cough syrup and scissor up and gangbang, you know, go drive around in a car and do drive-by shootings and bang bang bang. It's all about Gucci making money, and they don't even hide it. Like half of these gangster rappers, like their record companies are literally called Rockefeller Records and shit like that. You know, and they don't even hide that they're in the Illuminati. Like that's the main goal is to join the Illuminati. No, I'm good. I'd rather not. Um, but to me, punk rock was very humble. Like we didn't buy our own outfits; we made them. So like I don't know. My dad for the longest time was like, "Oh, you're gay," you know, because I used to sew and I used to sew patches and I used to make my own jewelry and I used to make my own uh, clothing styles. It literally was like, fuck fashion. You can make your own clothes. We used to go to Goodwill, man. Like, take a punker, an OG punk, to Goodwill, and they're gonna have a heyday. That's how. There you go. That's one test on how to see how an actual OG punk compared to someone who's not an actual punk. Otherwise, go to a Goodwill and they will have a fucking blast on finding old blazers and tearing them up and putting safety pins in them and stitching them back together and then tearing it again and stitching it back together and then cutting up t-shirts and sewing it on as back patches and making their own fucking clothes to look as wonky as they want. And the ones that you'll seed out as the actual non-punks, they'll be like, can we go to a hot topic? Yeah, there you go. That's a real good way to find out if you got an actual punk with you or not. I made all my clothes. I got a leather jacket, you know, that I still have from high school, and I put all the patches on myself. I graffitied it myself. That's just me, man. I go to Goodwill, I find cool looking shit that I like, and that's it, man. I wear weird ass clothes, but that's just me, man. OG punk. And all these kids out and about, they're like, "Oh my god, where'd you get that?" And it's like Goodwill for like $5. You know, really? Yeah, I put together my own outfits. They're wonky, and it's how I feel at the day. You know, there's times I've wore suspenders and a fedora, and there's times I've wore a leather jacket with patches all over it and torn up jeans, and there's times that I've wore just sweater and my hair's a mess, and it just depends on how I feel. That's how I'm gonna dress. But Sid Vicious, man, there is a conspiracy in it. With the movie, I'll start this podcast out with pretty much what I think about the movie. It's Hollywood, but it does get the story out. It gets it out very accurately. Johnny Rotten has said that he despises the movie because the movie romanticizes drug use. And I actually agree with him on that. I do think that punk rock, there's not very many OG punks left. And the ones that are left will say probably the same thing that I would say. We survived it. And I don't separate myself from that. I'm always a punk till the day I die. But we survived it, and the music died before we died. So there's very few OG punks who are still alive that it does romanticize drug use. And a lot of the OG punks that are still around are just like me, walking around their apartment with scrambled brains like Ozzy Osbourne, and it sucks. It sucks. Because once you're burnt, you can't unburn. You ever burn a piece of paper? Yeah, you can't make that piece of paper go back. Like, you could glue another piece of paper to it, but then it's not the original piece of paper. I don't know. That's an analogy for you. But the film itself, it kind of shows along the lines that there's a suicide pact that gets brought into play without ruining it, without telling too much info. And this might be a two-parter episode. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. But it's a suicide pact essentially that they agree upon. And that's, yeah. Let's just get into the story. We're going to do a timeline of each of their lives. Sid Vicious was born as Simon John Ritchie. That's his first name. That's his actual name. 1958, February 27th, Nancy Spungen is born. The baby is jaundice and immediately needs blood transfusion. June, Nancy is given her first sedatives, phenobarbital, at 3 months. 1960, the Ritchies' marriage had broken up. Mother Ann embarks on nomadic bohemian lifestyle, which takes her and her son to Ibiza for 2 years, then to Soho, where she works at Ronnie Scott's jazz club. Bohemian lifestyle is essentially hippie, but before the hippies. They were called the Bohemians. There's actually a very good book that gets into that. If you want to check it out, it's called The Proud Highway, written by Hunter S. Thompson. And that will tell you all about the Bohemians. 1962. At 4 years of age, Nancy is sent to see her first psychiatrist. Although she has tantrums and mood swings, she has an extremely high IQ, which comes into play because I love Nancy, but I hate her. Do you ever have a family member that you love, but you hate at the same time? You love them, but you just want to beat them over the head with a frying pan? I'm probably that family member to a lot of my friends and family. Or have you ever had a friend that's the same way? Like, you love them, but you want to hit them over the head. You'll see how that becomes Nancy. That's how I feel about her. 1965, Simon Ritchie becomes Simon Beverly after his mom remarries. But 6 months later, his new father figure dies, devastating both Simon and Anne. They stay in Tunbridge Wells for 6 years. 1971. In a school for disturbed children, Nancy discovers drugs at age 13. The Beverleys move back to London from Tunbridge Wells. 1973. Simon reverts to being John, goes to Hackney Technical College, and meets John Lydon, which is basically Johnny Rotten. That's his actual legal name, John Lydon, and John Wardle, which he becomes Ja Wobble. This was back, here's another thing too, Ja Wobble. Like, this is a whole episode I'm going to do one day on the skinheads. They actually didn't start out as neo-Nazis. And I know that bursts a little bubble for all these SJWs out there. The skinhead movement was not a racist movement. It became a racist movement when it got infiltrated. Kind of like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter started out as Black Lives Matter 2, and then got infiltrated and became Black Lives Matter. They took the 2 off. Same with Save Our Children, about basically a group who's fighting child sex trafficking right now. Save Our Children got infiltrated, and now it's Save the Children. Be real careful, because the government moves in on like pure organizations, infiltrates them, and they change just like 1 or 2 words and completely rewrite the entire thing into some evil fucking force of nature. So thankfully, before we didn't do hashtags, and our movement, punk, was literally just punk. It's kind of hard to rewrite one word. So we were at least smart enough with that. Back in the day, I don't know, people back in the day had a little bit of brains in their movements, though. I don't know if people around here or today have brains when they start organizations, but just saying. I digress. 1971. In a school for disturbed children, Nancy discovers drugs at age 30. Oh, yeah, there we go. 1974. Oh, yeah, that's why his name was John Wobble. That was where I was going with that. I regress, I guess. The punks, the skinheads, and as weird as it sounds, the Rastafaris started pretty much the English punk movement all at the same clubs. And they all went to the same shows, and they all enjoyed the same music. A lot of people don't know this, but the skinheads actually loved Rastafari reggae. They actually got along like super good and super tight with the Rastafaris, man, because they didn't care about skin color. It was literally just, hey, we're proud to be black, and we're proud to be white. And they actually got along just fine. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your skin color. It wasn't until skinheads got infiltrated in the 90s and shit with all this neo-Nazi bullshit. And actually, it was earlier than the 90s. Like, you look at movies like American History X, that was like the 90s, like California skinhead scene. You go back further to like Romper Stomper when it was like early 80s and shit, when they started infiltrating and making it into like a neo-Nazi movement. It's just craziness. 1974, May 27th. Sid is charged with assaulting 2 police officers after going drunkenly berserk. Nancy is studying journalism and marketing at Colorado University, but she's expelled for stealing and ends up being in a mental hospital. Sounds like love, meant to be. 1975. In the gang he hangs out with, John Lydon's Gray and Wardle, the 4 Johns, what they were so to be called. So Lydon rechristened Richie as Sid, after his pet hamster. Richie hates the name, but has to live with it. I hate the name Sid. It's really vile and poxy. I stayed in 2 weeks because everyone kept calling me Sid, but they just wouldn't stop, Rotten started. He's horrible like that. He's always picking on me. Nancy, living in New York, hanging around with bands at clubs, earning cash as a topless dancer, a dominatrix, and turning tricks in the sex trade, she becomes a hardcore groupie modeling herself on Sable Star. Many years later, Courtney Love takes Nancy Spungen as her role model. There we go. Conspiracy Corner Podcast. Put your tinfoil hat on. Do you ever notice a similarity between Nancy Spungen and Courtney Love and the 27 Club, and Kurt Cobain gets killed this time? Something odd going on there. And we'll get into the murders of... This is a conspiracy in itself. I know you're like, oh, I'm waiting on conspiracies. Hey, sometimes I like to have fun with this channel and not talk about how they're turning the freaking frogs gay 24/7. Like it or don't. But I still like you. Let's see. November 6th. This is 1975. The Sex Pistols play their first gig. Sid becomes one of the entourage following around this new but unknown underground group up against the world that his mate John Lydon, now called Johnny Rotten, sings in. Now we're getting into 1976. Rotten has given Sid a new surname, Vicious, after his ironically named soft pet hamster. The vicious thing was just a joke. He was a softy. It was only when people looked at him when he went out that he thought that he had to live up to the name. Ann Beverly, Sid's mom, says. Sid invented the pogo dance, jumping up and down in the tiny crowd that comes out to see his mate John Lydon and the Sex Pistols. June 1976. NME journalist Nick Kent, famous for championing the dissecting real rock and roll, attends a Sex Pistols gig. An old friend of the Pistols, manager Malcolm McLaren, he's a weasel. He rehearsed the band in their informative years. Right now, he is a junkie in a bad way. Sid, out of it on speed, perhaps with encouragement from either McLaren or group members, takes a rusty bike chain and whips Kent around the head. There's blood everywhere. The event is reported in the music newspapers, giving the Pistols a very dangerous reputation. Maybe they were personal undercurrents. Nick Kent has been going out with Chrissy Hind, who is part of the Pistols and the sex shop scene. Chrissy is also a good friend of Sid's. July 1976. The 4th. Sid sees the Ramones at the Roundhouse. Previously, he's been heavily into Iggy Pop and the Stooges and David Bowie. Now he's learning to play bass along the Ramones' first album. Kind of like me, man. That's how I learned how to play bass, was bass and singing, honestly, was playing Ramones albums, you know? Ramones and Misfits. Let's see. The following week at Dingwall's, he gets to the after show party and shares a fix of speed with Dee Dee Ramone, shocking him by loading his syringe with dirty toilet water. Nancy reviews the Heartbreakers' first gig with Billy Rath in place of Richard Hell at Max's Kansas City. That's a club that I actually have an album. It's Sid Lives. It's a live album when Sid went solo after the Pistols, and it was recorded at Max. Max is pretty much, I think it was like pretty close to the Chelsea Hotel, which they died at, which is haunted, by the way, by Sid and Nancy's ghost. So I know if you tune into the channel for paranormal stuff, I can do an episode just on that. I'm probably going to do a second episode on this because it gets deep, homeboy. In the words of Sam Tripoli. For New York Rocker, issue 4. She's got a big thing about their drummer, Jerry Nolan. He's been friendly. She seems to be obsessed. Jerry says he turned down her sexual advances. No doubt feeling her more, but got her to spend her money on him. September 1976. Being part of the tiny embryonic punk scene, Sid's hanging out with lots of people who are now forming bands. You don't have to be able to play well. It's the attitude that counts. And that is punk rock, man. It's the show. The day before Sushi and the Banshees are due to play the 100 Club Punk Festival, Marco Perroni suggests Sid Vicious should join them on drums. It's a one-off performance that Sushi was blagged. They decided that as they haven't had time to rehearse the songs, they'll do about a 20-minute experimental art piece, The Lord's Prayer, with Sushi and the Banshee. Sushi wailing over the heavy rock cliched guitar. If you all have never heard Sushi and the Banshees, man, if you're getting bored with the podcast, I don't care. You can stop the podcast, but check out Sushi and the Banshees. That's all that I care about, is if you listen to some good music. I mean, you don't have to listen to this. I don't care. But on your own free time, if you want to continue listening, check out Sushi and the Banshees. They're awesome, dude. And they're pretty rare, so, I mean, it'd be hard to find, but I found them on YouTube and stuff. All right, the 20th. of July 1976. Sid plays drums with Sushi. They perform, supporting the Sex Pistols' Twist and Shout and Knocking on Heaven's Door, alongside the Lord's Prayer and Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. The set is described by some as unbearable, but reminding Neil Stevenson of Yoko Ono's The Fly. Sid and Sushi wear swastikas, which is intended to upset people, including Clash managers Bernie Rhodes. By the way, a lot of punk rock is trolling. I don't think Sid Vicious was a neo-Nazi. A lot of it is just wearing it just to piss people off. So, like, this is why punk would not survive during this SJW political correct movement of today. This is sadly the coffin nail in the coffin that's called punk. I can't walk or talk 2 seconds without offending someone in 2 seconds, so that's my life. It sucks. Being an OG punk, it kind of sucks. Let's see, the 22nd, the group Sid is loosely rehearsing with is given the name Flowers of Romance by Johnny Rotten. It includes variously Palmolive and Vib Albertine, later of the Slits, Steve Walsh, Joe Fall, Sarah Hall, Steve England, and Keith Levine. In amongst Ramones covers, Sid composes some originals, including the black-humored Belson Was a Gas, his only composition to ever be recorded, Piece of Garbage, and Brains on Vacation never get to be heard. It's sadly a lot of these recordings you can't find, you know. October 1976, the 9th. The Sex Pistols signed to EMI Records. They are an all-persuasive UK establishment label, as well as the Beatles and Queen. They have lots of classical and opera music. November 1976, Anarchy in the UK, the Sex Pistols' debut single, is released on EMI. The Damned have beaten them by a month as the first UK punk single with New Rose on the new indie Stiff Records. So The Damned was technically the first punk rock song to be reproduced on record in England. We beat them in the US with the Ramones, but they argue amongst themselves, but I'm just saying, as far as historical accuracy, the Damned were the first in England to create punk rock, but after the Ramones. America created punk rock, and I'm sorry, England, you can get over it. We created punk rock. But I will say this, as far as timelines. With The Damned, you all created horror punk with The Damned. The Misfits came after The Damned. So, everyone credits the Misfits here in the US as creating horror punk. No, The Damned did. And by the way, that's another band you should check out, is The Damned. They're wicked, man. Let's see. So, sorry, man. I love punk rock, and I get into these rants, but I love punk rock, man. Where are we at? Anarchy Tour. I'm sorry. White Noise. The 30th. The Heartbreakers arrived from the U.S. to join the Anarchy Tour. December 1976, the 1st. The Sex Pistols had their notorious TV interview with Bill Grundy, which you can find on YouTube. Together with Sushi and other members of the Bromley contingent, they sit around waiting and get lots of complimentary drinks. The leering and sarcastic interview lasts about 2 minutes. Grundy foolishly goads them into swearing. Suddenly, the front pages all over the UK are covered with the Sex Pistols. They've sworn on prime-time TV, oh God. And the nation agrees, they're truly disgusting. Viewers have attacked their television sets, the paper's reports. Interview Bill Grundy is suspended from his job for encouraging them. No, you just gave him free publicity. Thanks, bro. On the 3rd, the Anarchy in the UK tour with the Sex Pistols, Clash, and Damned, and Johnny Thunder's Heartbreakers starts today. Only it doesn't. Press outrage from the TV interview means all but 3 of the 19 dates get canceled. The tour becomes surreal. EMI have their annual this is the 7th. EMI have their general meeting, and the chairman is forced to make a statement about this young pop group, the Sex Pistols. They've been accused of peddling filth and are facing shareholders' revolt. We should do everything we can to restrain their public behavior. This is the 9th. At Manchester, the Buzzcocks replace the Damned, banned in the UK. The 19 dates become 3. I actually like the Buzzcocks, but they are kind of like pop punk, like soft punk. The only way I can describe listening to the Buzzcocks is like it's kind of fun to like drive around with your girlfriend or your wife. Something soft to listen to where kind of like the Violent Femmes, like you can listen to it with a girl in the car, and it's punk rock and edgy, but it's not completely punk rock as far as like I'm gonna bash a bottle and slash my chest open and bleed on you. Like it's not hardcore. It's like pop punk, you know. But I mean, they're not bad. The Buzzcocks. I have like one of their albums. I just remember one of the songs on it was like something like, "You're an orgasm addict. He's always at it. You're an orgasm addict." I don't know. It's silly. They use keyboards and shit, so kind of like The Cure. And let's see, the 25th. Every time a gig is canceled, there's been yet more press coverage, covering comments from both the local authorities and the band. A representative of Greater London Council says, "My view on punk rock is that it's nauseating, disgusting, degrading, ghastly, sleazy, prurient, voyeuristic, and nauseating. I think most of the groups would be vastly improved by sudden death." Lee Blackchilders, the Heartbreaks manager, at a party, stumbles upon Sid and listening to the sentimental Jim Reeves record, and he's crying. Aw, poor Sid. Got an emotional side. Alright, so we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but this is part 2, I guess. So we already went through the airport incident. 1977 is January. EMI have tried to push off criticism, but by now, let's see, 50,000. Okay. So we're on February 1977, the 13th. Unlucky 13. Sid Vicious gives an interview to LA DJ Rodney Bingingheimer, where he says he has auditioned for the band, but was about founder, bassist, and main songwriter Glenn Matlock. Sid Vicious officially joins the band Sex Pistols. Malcolm McLaren announces Glenn Matlock's departure in a telegram sent to the New York Musical Express. Sid Vicious, their best friend and always a member of the group, but unheard, as yet was enlisted. His best credential was he gave Nick Kent what he deserved many months ago. It says Glenn was sacked, but in the early reality, after years of rehearsing and gigging, Glenn is fed up with Rotten and leaves the band. March 1977. The 10th. A&M Records signed the Sex Pistols, now with the spiky and photogenic Sid Vicious. At a photo opportunity in front of Buckingham Palace, after he posed signing They go to A&M offices drunk and trash them. Steve Jones shags a secretary in the toilet. The 12th. The Speakeasy Club is a late-night drinking club frequented by old guard music bizzers. The Pistols invade it and start arguing with Bob Harris, the presenter of the Old Gray Whistle Test. The 70s rock show veering towards old-school country rock is there. A bar fight ensues. Harris' companions get glassed, needing 14 stitches. The 15th. Nancy arrives in London, clutching Jerry Nolan's guitar that she got out of New York City pawn shop for him. Jerry takes the guitar, but doesn't let her in. After the Heartbreakers gig at the Speakeasy, recorded and later issued on Jungle to the band's... Sorry, gotta turn the page. To the band's horror, Nils Stevenson lets her into their flat. Johnny Thunder locks the door. Jerry Nolan gets up into the bed with Nils and Simone fully clothed to escape from Nancy. They're completely paranoid of this woman. Everyone is shocked and wary of this junky groupie rock chick who habitually cuts her wrist. Meanwhile, a letter at the A&M arrives from Bob Harris lawyers. His manager also manages Peter Frampton, one of A&M's top acts. The 16th. A&M Records sacked the Sex Pistols. Just one week this time. The payoff, £75,000. Nancy is ejected by Johnny Thunders and Jerry Nolan from their flat. She moves in with dominatrix Linda Ashby's, who earns a good living whipping celebrities and MPs. By now, Nancy has met the Sex Pistols, hit on Johnny Rotten, who is nasty to her, but Sid is sorry for the girl who everyone's rude with. Has he ever had a girlfriend before? Sid appears live with the Pistols for the first time on the 21st. A short notice secret gig at a Catholic church's Notre Dame Hall in London Leicester Square. Only 50 to 100 people at present. April 1977, the 3rd. Another rare gig to introduce Sid, the London Islington Cinema, the screen on the green. On the 6th, Sid in a bad way is dragged out of Linda's flat. Malcolm squeezes him. Is he shooting up? Nancy has introduced him to heroin. Sid is sent home to his mom. On the 12th, Sid's looking yellow. The doctor confirms hepatitis, contracted from dirty needles. He's moved again. On the 16th, Sid is now at St. Anne's Hospital, Tottenham, with hepatitis. May 1977, on the 1st, Nancy visits Sid in the hospital regularly, as well as Sophie Richardson and the band. On the 12th, Virgin Records signs the Sex Pistols. Maybe they'll get along better with hippies and straight businessmen. It is a radical change of image for their previously hairy label. Ironically, many years later, owner Richard Branson sells Virgin Records to EMI. At last, Sid is out of the hospital on the 13th. It's been 4 weeks. His signature is still missing from the Virgin contract, and the band have recorded much of the album without him. Steve Jones has recorded the bass parts. On the 16th, manager Malcolm McLaren has to debunk a question made by the TV that the Pistols have a connection to the right-wing National Front Party. The Sex Pistols are not into any political party. Anarchy is not fascism. Ooh, I'd love to. Yeah, anarchy is not fascism, but self-rule and a belief in following one's own way of life without recourse to any form of dictatorship or nationalism. We hate this kind of army nonsense. The 27th. The God Save the Queen single is released after various pressing and promotional hiccups. The 28th. Johnny Rotten's mom is interviewed by her local paper. Mrs. Rotten says, "He's not around murdering people. In fact, groups like the Sex Pistols help society by bringing kids in off the street." The 31st. The BBC decide to ban God Save the Queen from the radio, as it's gross bad taste. Independent radio does the same. June 1977. On the 7th, Malcolm McLaren and Virgin have hired a boat to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee in the River Thames. The boat is called the Queen Elizabeth, and the Pistols are on board to play the invited Queen. 6 police boats start to follow. The riverboat is forced to pull over. The Metropolitan Police Board pull the amplification plug and evict everyone. 11 are arrested. On the 11th, the Daily Mirror tabloid publishes Sid Vicious' first interview. "I'm not a vicious person, really. I love my mom. She's understood me and is glad I've found something in life I really enjoy. I'll probably die by the time I reach the age 25, but I'll have lived the way I want to." Later he says, "I told him exactly the opposite of what he wanted to hear." It's funny. I don't know how well my Sid Vicious voice was, but on the 18th, the Sex Pistols hit #1 in the UK with God Save the Queen. But mysteriously, some sales disappear from the official sales chart, and most charts list it as #2 in the Queen's Jubilee week. God Save the Queen has now sold over 2,500,000 in the UK, giving it a prestigious silver disc status, despite the blanket radio ban and many shops such as the W.H. Smith and Woolworths refusing to stock it. Meanwhile, pistol bashing has become a sport in London. Band members now have to be wary. Rotten cook and artist Jamie McGregor all get attacked in the street. July 1977. On the 1st, the Pretty Vacant single is released with a cover of Iggy Pop and the Stooges' No Fun on the B-side. Lyrically, it's not controversial, so might get airplay. It gets stocked in the chains. On the 7th, Sid accompanies Nancy, who is in court for possessing an offensive weapon, and she's overstayed her visa. On the 13th, Sid misses the plane for a short tour in Scandinavia. He left his passport behind. On the 14th, seen on Top of the Pops with the Pretty Vacant promo video. Top of the Pops, there you go. Jimmy Savile. I'm going to do a whole episode on this channel of Jimmy Savile on how much of a scoundrel and child predator he was. Sick bastard, man. And got knighted by the Queen. God save the Queen. We mean it, man. August 1977. On the 1st. Sid almost had a marriage of convenience with Chrissie Hynde to enable her to stay in the UK. They go with the birth certificate to the registry office, but it's closed. On the 2nd, Sid is in court, charged with carrying a knife at the 100 Club Punk Festival in September. To the clash, Jones and Simonon appear as a character witness. Sid gets a £125 fine. Sex Pistol gigs in England have to be clandestine to avoid being cancelled. They do a gig as the Spots, SPOTS, which stands for Sex Pistols on Tour Secretly. Other pseudonyms are the Tax Exiles, Special Guest, Acne Ramble, and the Hamsters. An unfurnished flat is found for Sid in Maid Vale at 3 Pendock Mews. It is a 7-year lease. Malcolm says that's fine. He'll be dead by then. True enough, concurs. Gittiber's secretary Sophia Richardson says in her diary. October 1977. The Holidays in Sun single is released coupled with Satellite. Meanwhile, the Pistols are reported to have rehearsed a new song. It's Sid Vicious, Belson Was a Gas, from his Flowers of Romance days. On the 27th of October, the album Nevermind the Bullocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, is Rush released today. It's banned from sale at the chain boots W.H. Smith and Woolworths because it contains the first two singles they don't like. November 1977, the 5th. A record shop owner is arrested for displaying a poster of Nevermind the Bullocks under the 1889 Incident Advertisement Acts and a Vagrancy Acts. Many shops stopped selling it, or at least displaying it. More controversy for the press. On the 20th, in court, Q.C. John Mortimer produces a professor of linguistics who examines the history of the words bullocks, an Old English word used for 1,000 years to describe a small sphere, but also to mean rubbish, but it most commonly used in the term for testicles. Mortimer argues that this prosecution is not against the alleged indecent word, but is waging war on the band. Cause dismissed. Bullocks is not indecent. The band are fed up with Sid being a problem and blame Nancy. Sid turns up to rare rehearsal to find no one there. Sid gets very drunk, very depressed, and suicidal. Nancy stops him from jumping out a hotel window. He then gets violent with her and blood is drawn, with much hysterics. The hotel calls the police, who arrest the pair. There's no charges, but because of the couple's excessive behavior, the band does not want Sid anymore, unless he gets rid of Nancy. December 1977. Off to tour Holland for 10 days on the 5th. Sid and Nancy apart. Management and band are trying to separate them. There's a confrontation with Nancy and they try to fly her one way to New York. Sid's no longer best buddies with Johnny, and there's tension in the air. Sex Pistols play a children's party in Huddersfield. Sid takes lead vocals for the first time on a version of Johnny Thunders' Born to Lose, which later appears on Sid Sings, the album. On the 29th, the Pistols are refused entry visas to the USA. They've all got criminal records. Although the offenses are drug possession, burglary, theft, and assault, somehow they managed to get clearance into the USA. 1978, January, the 5th. The Pistols make their U.S. debut at Atlanta Great S.E. Music Hall. Immediately, Sid ducks his minders to find some heroin. Minders is, by the way, another word, aka handlers. Memphis Taliesin Ballroom on the 6th is sold out. Sid gashes his arm deep with a knife to help keep them in the headlines. He's got a bad withdrawal symptoms and needs some heroin. The tour antics start to get crazy. Years later, related in the book 12 Days on the Road. I actually have that book, so I'd like to read it. That's when they played around in the U.S. I have it. San Antonio, Randy's Rodeo on the 8th. 2,000 capacity. Sid is off with groupies and drugs. On stage, he hits a fan with his bass and gets a bloodied nose. On the 9th, Baton Rouge Kingfish Ballroom. On the 10th, Dallas Longhorn Ballroom. It's a country and western venue, and the CW Rednecks are out in force. Sid goes on stage with "Gimme a Fix" scrawled on his bare chest. Again, he gets hit in the face and retaliates. On the 11th, Tulsa Canes Ballroom. On the 14th, San Francisco Winterland, 4,000 capacity. Before the gig, They all get interviewed on radio stations. On KSAN, Sid says, "We'll probably be dead in 2 years." Belson Was a Gas is performed live for the first time, and it's the last ever Sex Pistols gig. So that's the fall of the Sex Pistols. I'm going to end it right there, though, and I have more coming. Thank you for enjoying part 1. There will be a part 2 of Sid and Nancy. We're going to get more into the conspiracy side of it. Who killed Nancy? Because it's kind of up in the air. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. I love y'all. Y'all have a good day. Happy November. Hope this month is better than last.
We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings, secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.